Welcome to the Style and Strategy Podcast, where personal brand meets leadership and style. I'm Sonya, a personal brand and style coach who's been exactly where you are, juggling career and business success, personal growth, and finding a style that truly fits. After decades in corporate leadership, I've learned that showing up isn't just about what you do. It's about how you align who you are and how the world sees you. This season, I'm bringing you practical strategies, bold insights, and honest conversations to help you amplify your presence, unlock your next level, and lead with clarity and confidence. Let's dive in. Someone asked me, how do I stay so grounded when I'm speaking to crowds or on video? And they actually gave a beautiful compliment to say that I make it look effortless. Well, I'm so pleased that you feel that way. And here is my honest answer. It doesn't come naturally to me either. And I know many of you may be thinking, no, what looks like it does. But I really wanted to have a really honest conversation with you this episode. So I still absolutely get nervous. Like, I really don't want to do this nervous. I take a breath and over-prepare nervous. So even now, after so many years of doing these, but what I've learned through the years is having a really grounded presence isn't about naturally kind of being confident. It's about having a few things around me that support me. And I thought today, because I was asked that question, I was going to walk you through a couple of bits of the framework that I use, specifically being the 3 non-negotiables that allow me to really show up with authority, whether I'm on stage, camera, or in those moments that matter. And so I'm going to be really specific because I know that vague advice, just be confident, it just doesn't help anyone. So I'm going to be trying to be as specific as I can for you. You're going to actually hear a little bit about like pre-stage rituals, things like that, the tactical things that I do with my voice and body and the mindset shift that really changes things. So let me just take you back though. Early on in my career, when I was working in corporate, I was tapped on the shoulder and went through sort of these leadership development programs. And at one stage, I worked with a presentation coach, right? And he was actually an ex-actor. And I'll never forget the presentation that we had to prep for was, think about someone that you admire or you really like the work that they're doing and you're going to do a presentation and talk to it. And funnily enough, at that time, the person that I had in mind was actually Tory Burch. So some of you may know is a fashion designer. So that should have given me an inkling that my career was going to shift at some point. Anyway, so I aspired to her because she did a lot of philanthropic work as well. Anyhow, so during that presentation, one of the first things he told me was, you move your hands too much when you speak. Now, what you need to know about me is that I'm actually half Italian. So my first reaction was, oh, this is just me. This is who I am. I can't sit on my hands. And I know that at the time, you know, there was this inkling of, no, you're going to have to hold and be really still and calm, which kind of took away from the energy that I could bring into a room. But many years on, what I realized from that advice was actually something that is key to everything I'm going to teach you today. And it wasn't, like I said, about sitting on my hands or making myself smaller. It was about using my hands strategically so that I could actually have the audience move with me and not get distracted by me. That shift is really the difference between presence that can create impact versus presence that just feels like, again, that whole mask wearing scenario. A grounded presence isn't about necessarily having more control over things. And it's certainly not about suppressing who you are or trying to fit into somebody else's idea of executive presence, right? That grounded presence is really, I see it as foundational. It's really anchoring yourself so that your natural expressiveness becomes an asset and not a distraction. And ultimately is that the person you are on stage is the same person, maybe just a dialed down version of the person you are when you meet in a room somewhere else, right? And I know many performers out there, I've heard interviews and so forth where they've said they were so excited to meet this person who was on stage, who was like big and bubbly, but actually behind the scenes were completely, 180, totally different. Whereas I sort of come from that school is I am who I am. I might dial it up a bit more energy, that sort of thing in a big room, but you're not going to feel the difference whether I'm talking to you here or whether, we're having a one-on-one meeting. So the first non-negotiable, I would say, when it comes to creating that kind of presence is physical grounding, right? So before I step onto a stage, turn on a camera, walk into a major room, normally I will always want to light a candle, right? Usually it's something from Glass House or Koya. That guava lychee is probably one of my favorites because the scent grounds me. I am a very tactile and someone who really recognizes scents, okay? And it really just helps my nervous system. It puts me in a zone. And it's about creating an environment that tells my body that this is a space where I perform at my best. So 30 minutes before, I might put on a happy playlist, right? Sometimes I've got a happy playlist, but sometimes I might even say, hey, Siri, can you find me a happy playlist? But on my happy playlist, this is not like professional music or anything like that. Mine is, there's elements of Dreams by Regan. There's elements of We Built This City, and there's I'll Be Around, right? It's a chaotic mix of music, but it's something that gets me energized without, throwing me out of whack, right? And then 10 minutes before, now this one's a bit of a secret. A lot of my clients know this one. Some of you may be familiar with Amy Cuddy, who talks about the power pose, right? And this whole concept of lifting your adrenaline, testosterone before something. And it sounds ridiculous. And unless you have tried it, it won't make sense. But, it might be that I might jump up and down and put my arms up for 2 minutes, right? Just to lift that energy. And this isn't woo-woo. There's actual research behind this because your body language doesn't just communicate to others, it communicates to you, right? And when you stand in that power pose for 2 minutes, your body starts to believe it. And then right before I go on, I always check physical foundation, right? If I'm standing, and standing is my absolute preferred position to be in, my feet shoulder width apart, height, weight evenly distributed, no locked knees because that kind of makes you sway. If I'm sitting, I'm normally in my kneeling chair or I'm sitting upright, right? Not slouched, not rigid, but really grounded. And standing for me is my favorite. And what I see sometimes is when people are presenting or talking on camera, whatever that might be, they stand really stiff. They force the eye contact. They might be holding your breath, right? Think about a tree, right, as an analogy here. It doesn't sway because its roots are deep in the ground, right? But it's still flexible. So that's what you're building, right? A large tree, think about it like that. And then there's some movement. Number 2 is the vocal grounding, right? The second non-negotiable around this, and this is where people sometimes undermine really their authority through their voice. And here's what I used to do, and sometimes it still plays out. So I have to be very conscious of it. I would rush through. My voice would get higher, and then I would try to fill every sentence with "or," "so you know," and start to talk faster and faster. But when I learnt that your voice can be a tool and you can train it, so this is what I do now. It's about slowing down. It's like 20% slower than what feels absolutely natural. Because when you're nervous, your brain speeds up and your audience is processing in real time. So if you speak at the pace of your anxiety, they can't keep up. So I consciously slow down. And yes, it feels painfully slow to me, but to them, it allows them time to process. The second element is pausing for impact, right? And some of these you may have heard before, but again, I'm answering the question. This was a game changer for me. I can tell you I was terrified of the silence. Half a second would feel like hours. I thought pauses made me look like I didn't know what I was talking about. I'd forgotten what I had to say. But the pause creates presence. Because when you pause after a key point, your audience has time to process what you said. You give yourself time to breathe. And the tactical thing that I actually do, I still count in my head, especially if I'm in a big room. I'll go 1, 2, 3, and then I'll continue. And it feels so long when you're doing it, but it's not. And it gives that audience the space they need. So try it right now. Say something, then pause and count to 3. Feels completely uncomfortable, doesn't it? That's not because you're not used to it, but to your audience, it feels powerful. Speak from your chest, not your throat. So, actually, it's supposed to come from your diaphragm. Technically, this is what I learned from the acting school. So, but you want to really speak from lower down, right? Not your throat. And it's something I still have to work with, right? Because it is about breath. So I'm no way an expert here. When you're nervous, you breathe shallow. And when you breathe shallow, your voice comes from your throat. It sounds thinner, a little bit more uncertain. And when you breathe deep, that diaphragm breath that I was talking about, again, I've learned this through those presentation classes and the acting classes. Your voice comes through much more grounded. So before I speak, I often take a breath and just fill those lungs so I can ground my voice and then speak from there. Do I do it every time? No. But I try to ground that. And then the third non-negotiable is energetic grounding, right? This is the part that people skip because it's internal. It's not visible, but it's actually one of the most important parts because you can have the perfect posture, a powerful voice, and it can still feel off. So the energetic grounding is knowing what is your one message, not 10 points that you need to get across, not everything you could possibly say. What's one transformation you want to create for your audience? When I prepare for a talk, a reel, a video, meeting, it's not about scripting this word for word, right? It's really about trying to keep my authenticity in there. You know, I know my flow, it'll be about the dot points that I've got there. Yes, I need dot points because I will go off on a tangent. I've said it to myself and I've practiced a few times, so I know where I'm actually going with it. I'm not memorizing it. I'm really trying to anchor to the intention. For those of you that feel like you need to memorize, then you need to know it well enough that it then starts to come more natural. So that way the authentic elements can come through without you feeling like I've forgotten that key part. So for me, it is absolutely focusing on the impact that I'm trying to bring, right? It's not about, do I sound smart? Do I look confident? Are they judging me? All of that goes to the side, right? They're here for a reason. I'm here to talk to that one person. And I want to ensure that they're getting something from that. Even if there are 1,000 people in that room, I'm talking to that one person. And that, for me, is what really creates that grounded presence. I need to be in the zone. That means no distractions, calm environment. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not multitasking. And even with all of this, yes, I still get nervous. But the difference is now I don't let those nerves stop me. I don't let those nerves take control. And the more you put yourself in those situations, the better you will become. The more comfortable you get hearing your own voice over and over again in your head. I remember, again, being in a training session around this, and the suggestion was record yourself. Either talk to yourself in a mirror or constantly just record yourself until you can no longer hear and say, oh, that sounds funny. Oh, I hate the way I sound. Until it gets to that point where none of those elements exist anymore. And you're just listening to the words instead. I did an episode on the podcast a few weeks ago, which talked about actually knowing your communication design, right? Your human design related to your communication and how you're designed to actually communicate. Knowing that has also helped me a lot around realizing that, right, this is the way I am supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with the way that I'm doing it. I just need to refine it. So if you haven't tuned into that episode, I really recommend that you do. And if you want to know more about your communication by design, drop me a DM or an email. And I do have sessions where we can talk through that. So coming back to that question that I got asked, how do I stay so grounded when I'm speaking to crowds or video? Truth is, I've got a system. It's been years of practice. And then there's that physical grounding, right? The candle, the playlist, the power pose, the stance, the vocal grounding, slow, pause, count, speak. Energetic grounding, know my message, focus on the impact. And practice. Put yourself in those positions, because the more you take yourself away, the more you don't say yes to some of those, the longer it will take for you to become more comfortable in those scenarios. So if you are preparing for one of those moments that matters and you want to show up with a bit more grounded authority, then let's talk. As I said, I have a leadership by design session where if that's something you want to go into a lot more deeper, we can map your specific presence gaps, build your custom system, right? No generic advice, no cookie cutter. It's what is right for you. So you can learn more at my link in the show notes below. And let me know if you found this really interesting and what you're going to take away from it. And finally, I really want to wish you a wonderful Christmas break and New Year. I am clocking off for the new year and the podcast will be back in 2026. Thank you to all of you who have tuned in to the podcast this year and the year before and who've been with me since the beginning. I really do appreciate your support. And those of you who've been watching me on YouTube, thank you so much. I'd love to hear, what you would love to see more of in 2026. And so as I sit down to start planning after Christmas for what that's going to look like, I want to make sure these episodes are here for you. And if there is more of something you'd love to tune into and see more of, please let me know. It's been wonderful, and enjoy and have a safe Christmas and New Year, and I will see you in the new year. Take care.